In the tapestry of life, there is a America in black and white emerges as the podcast, the vibrant ooze of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. More than just a conversation, it's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
In hospitals.
Your microphone was making a lot of feedback noise. So
I didn't hear anything you said, and neither did the people in chat. So it's very static to me. Yeah, it's a lot of like it's a lot of so, but for those who are in the chat, why? Yeah, it's just a little bit of feedback. So the wonderful introduction that you gave, no one heard it, but it's all good in the hood. It's technology, it's live streaming, it is what it is. So all right. So as he is getting that done,
Okay.
hi to everyone in the chat.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but your volume's now low, so you might have to increase your volume.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but your volume's still low. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay, all right. Your volume's a little bit low. I don't know if the anyone else can hear you clear, but
Let's just do this. Okay, what about now? So you can hear me now? Can you hear me now? I can't hear you. Mhm. Hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Good. Perfect. All right. Okay. It could have been a headset issue. Not too sure. I just restarted. It's all good.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
Um. Thanks for those who are joining in. I see a number of people in there. Shout out to my wife that's in the chat room. I see Natalie, I love you. I also see some supporters. I see Lori, who's from the Black Nurses Leading Change. I see Shandeli. I see some other people in there. But yes, thank you.
Okay. Let me jump into this section here where I call your early life and identity and origins, where I'd like to let the audience get the opportunity to know a little bit about you. Take us back and tell us, where did you grow up and what was the environment that first shaped who you are as a man?
Okay. I am from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Born, raised there. Parents are from Jamaican background. Grew up in a very Jamaican, West Indian household, where I had a lot of traditional Caribbean Christian church values as well too. Growing up, pretty much being like I guess you can say like a late Gen X, early millennial. I guess like a zennial, as I would like to call us. Um, it was very instilled that it's all about your education. So it was always books, 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 books. That's always what it was for me. And I did have an interest in going into healthcare medicine. That was something that I was intrigued about. Um, but then after going to university, realizing it was a little bit not the path that I wanted to take, and then I ended up in nursing, and
Oh, wow.
the rest is history.
So, growing up as a black man, what messages did you receive explicitly or implicitly about who you were supposed to be and what you were capable of?
Okay, so as a black man, a you need to provide. B, you're always having to take care of everyone else and not necessarily your own feelings. And not to say that's we neglect our feeling, but it's always an issue where it's always a thing where you always had to provide. Like that was the main thing. You provide. You're the family man. You are the breadwinner. Also being a black man as well too, always being aware of your surroundings, knowing that at the end of the day you're black regardless. So um even though people might say, oh, good job, et cetera, you're still as a black man. So always have that in the back of your head. Also too, and this is for me personally, and I kind of learned this when I was growing, because as I got older, don't fall into the stereotypes, right? I find as a black man, and you can agree with this, that we're often told to be successful, you need to be either excelling in sports or entertainment. So whether you're a football player, basketball player, a rapper, singer, whatever the case may be, and that those are all great, but we're more than that, right? So getting an education, getting a post-secondary education, right? Because a lot of us, especially a black men in all, especially in the community within North America, because this is both based in in the States and up here in Canada, and the whole, we're kind of told to don't worry about sports. I mean, don't worry about education, just excel in sports.
So tell us about your family. Who were the people who laid the foundation for your values, your work ethic, and your sense of identity?
My family, sorry, my camera's jumping a bit. I don't know if that's just it seems to be jumping here. So my apologies. I don't know why it's doing that, but I'm just gonna continue talking. Um, Basically, as far as my family growing up, um, yeah, very traditional Jamaican family. Very like, even though I was born up here in Toronto, it was very Jamaican in my house. I've had two parents, working class, both worked, middle class. Um, Basically, as I said before, it was all about just education and trying to be the first one to be, who went to university and so forth. So it was education was always a big thing for me.
So what was the purpose and premise of education? Was that part of your family foundation? Was that something that was just newfound for you? How did that work?
Yeah, so pretty much because I mean, especially for my parents being like first generation, coming up here, it was very important that your children, in the case myself, because I was also taught I'm an only child, that education was always a key. You need to succeed. So that's where that's where we were always told to do. It was always about education, education, education. So, and that's been always in a part of my me growing up.
So was there a specific moment, a person, an experience, a turning point where you knew that nursing was your path? Walk us through that decision.
Um, so nursing is always okay. So pretty much kind of going in a back, like kind of going through history wise. So my mom always wanted to be a nurse when she grew up. When she came up to Canada, that was one of her things of being a nurse. So I remember being younger, going seeing like her medical health books. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna show you right now because there's actually a book that I still have of her. Hold on. It is, and I'm gonna really kind of um I'm gonna kind of date people. This book here, You and Your Health. Now I'm really kind of aging it for folks there. This book was a book that my mom had. It's a 3 volume series book. It talks about the health, the human body, and so forth. As a kid, when I was younger, I used to read through this book. I used to read through like the anatomy system and so forth because my mom wanted to be a nurse, but she didn't get the help that she could. So being seeing that kind of intrigued me originally to get into medicine. um, but then, going through university, I realized it was a bit of a journey for me, and nursing kind of fell in my lap because I was it was recommended. Um, and at first, I didn't think I wanted to become a nurse. I was very narrow-minded when it came to nursing. I thought nursing, yeah, like bedpanning, yeah. So with bedpanning, so then after that, but I was told, hey, no, do it. Go ahead and do it. And then I applied, got in. And then after doing nursing, especially in fields like emergency and ICU, I realized this is my career and I liked it. So
So when you told people you wanted to be a nurse, what was the reaction? Did you face doubt, skepticism, or pushback, and how did that sit with you?
um So I do have a family that has a number of nurses, but I will say there was disappointment, especially with my dad, because my dad at that point was already bragging to everyone that I would become a doctor. So when I had said no, I want to become a nurse, it was almost a little bit of disappointment. There was also a bit of narrow. When I say narrow-mindedness, it's just more of they just didn't know what a nurse is. Like nurse people think a nurse is just a bedside nurse, and they just go into they just do bedpan and they just clean people, but there's way more to that. um to the point where even like during my graduation, I mean, it was great that my mom was there and so forth and whatnot. But some family members were still like, you want to be a nurse? You're sure you want to be a nurse? Now, fast forward, especially after the pandemic, it um, it um, it changed a lot of minds. I'm just gonna check my camera for 1 sec. You can ask me a question. I'm just gonna turn it off and turn it on just to see if it works because I'm glitching for some reason. I see here.
Well, I just want to say there's going here into the chat.
Yeah,
Here is a. This is from Valerie Russell. She's proud of you. Um,
thank you.
from Rodrigo, he says hola.
Thank you very much. I'm just gonna switch here because I'm noticing I'm jumping here for some reason. So, but we can continue. No worries.
Okay, and I'm not sure. I'm quite sure you know who this is. Someone said, "Hey, Peanut."
Yep.
This first generation Caribbean do not play about education and success. I love this topic as it can get toxic at times if they steer away from what the vision of the family for that individual. Um, I'm not sure who that is, but I think she's definitely right on for
She
that.
is. No, she is. It's true. We're very like, and I do have a lot of my friends who are from West Indian background. Trust and believe. It's like it's all about books, it's all about school, it's all about education. There's always an ongoing joke with us growing up where it's like as soon as we have done something or we want to do something, the first thing that comes out of our parents' mouth is, did you read your books? Did you study your books? Did you read? Like that's always been an ongoing joke, but it's so true. We're all about education. We're all about, because we always, I guess, our our parents want to see us succeed,
Mhm.
that they never had the opportunities to do. So
And here is from Jamal. Not all heroes wear capes.
it's
And
true.
here we go with I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't want to say the name wrong, but it looks like I don't know. Lori. It's
Lori.
Lori.
Yeah.
Okay. Since Dwight is one of the most inspirational black men I have ever met. He is a mentor and a leader. And so let's as I get back
Thank you.
into this, can you tell me what did black excellence look like in your household or community growing up, and who modeled it for you?
Black. Okay, so I'm gonna do a difference between black excellence growing up and black excellence now. Black excellence growing up
Mhm.
was grinding, um, being the only black person in a lot of spaces that were either white or just people of not of similar background with you, and having to go through a lot of obstacles. And even when you did prove your point, you still faced obstacles if you were in a top leader position because you were always questioned. Fast forward in 2026, black excellence to me is something that you don't want to mess with. We have come so far, we've excelled so far, and it puts a smile on my face. Perfect example. Last year, I had won an award for Health Hero Awards for Black Health Professional Network up here in Toronto. And when I tell you, it felt like the Oscars. It was like a sea of professional black folks and just we're all dressed to the nines because we like to dress to the nines, and just seeing and hearing the excellence. I'm speaking to doctors, I'm speaking to researchers, I'm speaking to surgeons, I'm speaking to other nurse practitioners, I'm speaking to pharmacists. It's like there's such a huge, like it's such a huge gap. Like these were spaces that we weren't able to be in and to succeed in. So for me, there's a difference. Like the black excellence back then was like a starting ground and a route for us to like step up to the ladder. And now we're in spaces where we got awards, we have events, we have galas. Like we're now in a position where we can celebrate our own success and we don't need someone else giving us the glory because it's deemed to be appropriate for them. No, I want to celebrate my success. I should be able to celebrate it with amongst my own peers, not with the approval of someone else, because that's what's supposed to be what success is. So yeah.
So, how did your experience of race identity, culture shape the kind of caregiver and leader you eventually became?
So one thing I will say, and this is also very true with a lot of Black healthcare professionals, is we go through a lot of racial um discrimination, believe it or not. Prime example, when I first started nursing, first of all, people immediately thought I was security. I would walk in and they would think I'm security or housekeeping. And I'm like, but I'm wearing a stethoscope.
Right.
How am I security, or how am I, or housekeeping? So there's number one, that. Number two, not only am I'm a a black man. Well, I'm a black person, period, in nursing, but then a man on top of that. So there's like a double. There's kind of like a double stereotype, or I guess against me. The stat that I always like to throw out is 10% of all nurses are men, and out of that 10%, only an additional 10% are black. So really and truly, we represent 1% of the whole nursing population. So that's like a double stack against us. So you always have to prove yourself. Now, yes, sometimes I do get the, oh, you're the doctor and so forth. I do get that sometimes, but most of the time it's either I'm either security or I am housekeeping. And I'm always having to prove myself to be like, hey, I actually know what I'm talking about. Right. So that's something that I've always had to navigate. I'm in now in a situation where that's not so much the case because I've proved myself. But for anyone who's starting, it's something that you go through, and it's sad because I shouldn't have to prove myself that I know what I'm talking about. Even being in positions where I was a charge nurse, I still got questioned. I still got, does he really know what he's talking about? Well, yeah, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be in the position of leadership that I am. So
So, were there formative experiences in your life, in your early life, perhaps like a health crisis, a community loss, a moment of witnessing care given or denied that drew you toward the healing profession?
um there's a number of factors. Um I mean, that alone could be like a 3 hour podcast, but I'll give you one example. The prime one for me is sickle cell patients. Um I know people who personally have sickle cell. Um and seeing what they have gone through the healthcare system, people just automatically think that, oh, they're just drug seeking. Sickle cell is not about that. Sickle cell is a very painful crisis. Um, and I've dealt with a lot of sickle cell patients, and actually dealing with them themselves, and also because a lot of them are black, there's that we interconnect, right? So it's like I know what their coping skills are. I know what they've gone through. So myself, I'm going to do more and make sure their experience is better, because a lot of people, they just assume that, oh, they're just here seeking pain meds. That's not the case. They're in a severe painful crisis. And because they're either denied their pain meds, or just, oh, well, they just, they don't need that. They're not in pain. They're on their iPad or they're on their phone. Well, no, that's because they've had to learn coping mechanisms of how to deal with the pain when they know that their pain medication is not doing time, or it's not strong enough, or so forth. So seeing my friends going through that and actually seeing that in a hospital has kind of helped, that's one of the examples that kind of flipped the switch and said, hey, you know what, compassion really makes a difference. Another thing too, what I want to add is, and this is true especially for nursing, is, you know you can know the whole entire human system. You can know the pathophysiological pathways of this condition to that condition, but most patients, to be honest with you, what though? First of all, they remember the nurse mainly, not the doctor. And number two, it's the simplest things. So even if it's you giving a blanket, telling them thank you, telling them, checking on them, are you okay? The little simple things make a huge difference. And as a black person, in my position, I've known that I've been able to transcend that to others, especially those who are in the same background like me. Like we kind of have that connect. So it's like sometimes I don't even have to know what they want. I automatically, here you go. And that makes a huge difference because when you have someone who understands what you're going through, it makes the care a lot easier.
Wow. This comment here in the chat from Natalie, I like this comment. She says, "We're in the beginning to take the reins of our own success." That goes along with what you said earlier. When you think about that and you see that comment, how does that resonate with you?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's my wife. Thank you. But not only from hearing it from her, but just hearing it in general, it's true. Like I said before, we are now entering into spaces where we are controlling our own destiny. Um, my own personal mantra is I always say to myself, it's like a little saying to myself is, um, we need to be in an atmosphere that is free, that is open, that is striving for truth, and not having somebody else dictate to you how to do your thing, how to create your own success, because no one can do anybody else better than you can. And I've always keep that as my mantra because we know our destiny, we know what we want, we can control it. Don't let have someone else tell us we can or cannot do it because somebody else's policy says so or somebody else's belief says that. So by all means, yes, we are definitely taking the reins of our own success. That's why we have, I mean, that's why we have BT awards because we celebrate our own success. That's why we have the NACCP awards. That's why we have our own awards to recognize our own success because if they're not going to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And this comment here, I want to tell her, is that a young lady? Hey, Peanut.
Yes, it is.
I appreciate you for loving it here, and I hope that you come back and watch more shows. Thank you for that comment. Can you tell us how do you think growing up in the context of the Black diaspora, with all of its richness, its trauma, its community, and its complexity, gave you a particular kind of preparation for the work you now do?
Again, there's so many aspects to this question. I will say this. Um, Everything that's happening currently, and I mean, we can even just talk about in the last 3 months with like criminal cases that's going on. You guys know what I'm talking about. Um, it really makes you as a black person, especially as a black man, think of what can you do to either try to change the opinion or or make it seem like those stereotypes are not true.
That's a double-edged sword.
I know it's definitely a double-edged sword because it's like a constant circle. So I will say in my profession, yes, I do keep it professional, but I also am very aware of my surroundings and also what I do when I do it. Because as I said before, you know, yes, you can do good at your job, but at the end of the day, someone could just look at you and just think of race. This is the world that we're living in these days, right? Um, so yeah, like I'm very mindful. I'm very mindful of what I do, how I take care of my patients. I mean, obviously you can't be discriminatory because I mean people are coming to you because they're sick, but also you do get some of those questions and comments and people even questioning your care or even want a care from you. Does this person know what he's doing? I don't know. He looks like he's security. Is he a thug? Does he really know what he's talking? Like these are stuff that always I would get. So constantly I'm always like, well, I'm gonna prove to you that I'm not that. And then they get baffled. Um, I had one shift where it was a crazy shift, and I say this just to show skills wise. This was when I was working in the emerge. I remember in the beginning of my shift, I had to put in an IV in an 11-day-old baby. And then at the end of my 12-hour shift, I was doing CPR on a 99-year-old.
Oh, wow.
That is a huge
That's a
range.
broad range.
That is
A
a
broad.
very broad range. And it
Yeah.
takes a special somebody to do that. So if you want to look at me and act like I don't know, you think maybe, oh, I don't think I know what I'm doing, that alone should tell you. It
Yeah.
takes skills. It takes skills. And for those who are nurses like me, not even necessarily Black, but just of color, period, you know.
You do. Let's transition over to your nursing journey. The emergency and ICU. You spent over 15 years in emergency and intensive care unit nursing. For people who have never set foot inside an ICU, describe what that world actually looks like, feels like, and sounds like on a typical shift.
Okay. So first of all, I love that question, number one, because I've never had anyone ask me that question. But I'll definitely give you a journey. So, okay, so I'm walking into shift. I'm gonna do a full journey with you. So I'm walking into my shift. It's close to 7:15. I walking into our unit. It's not loud. The conversations are quite quiet. You will hear dinging of machines. You will hear dinging of IV pumps. And it's usually the nurses are giving report. The conversations you hear are nurses giving report to each other about the patient. It's what I like to call organized chaos, right? Because something can happen, like a patient can all of a sudden their heart stops beating and we need to do CPR, but it's in a controlled environment. It's not like the pit, for example, where it's just chaos through the door because it's in the ER. And for the record, whatever happened in that show is what I actually went through as an ER nurse. Also, too, in the ICU, there's a sense of calmness, right? Because we're all there. Our job is to stabilize the patients who are very critically sick. And we tend to recognize when things start to deteriorate fast. So there's a sense of calmness, there's a sense of control. Teamwork is a huge thing with us in the ICU. So if a patient isn't doing well, we all swarm in to help. If we get a new patient that comes in, we all swarm in to settle that patient in. It's very structured. Yeah, it's very structured, but it's also very complex. Because you can have one patient who might have a cardiac, like a heart issue, and then you have another patient who you're doing dialysis on, plus they're on a ventilator, plus they need a whole bunch of stuff. So you can have one patient that might only have 2 IV drips going, or you can have a patient that has 12 IV drips, plus they're on a ventilator, plus they're on dialysis, and you as a nurse is responsible for all of that.
Can you tell us what drew you specifically to critical care nursing, the emergency department, and the ICU rather than other areas of the profession?
So I'll tell you this. So when I was in nursing school, I remember I was on a cardiology unit, and I remember the clinical teacher said, "Hey, let's go to the ICU." So I said, "All right, cool." So we went into the ICU, and I remember specifically walking into the ICU, and there were a bunch of patients in closed glass rooms on ventilators and hooked up to a whole bunch of IV drips. And there were guys that were sitting around, and I thought they were doctors. Come to find out, these were nurses. I was like, "Oh, all right, okay, this is cool. I can see myself doing this." So that amazed me, number one, because I'm like, okay, great. This is where all the guys in nursing work.
Right.
Then I got a job it's something called an externship. So an extern is pretty much like a nursing student, but who works in whatever area, like whatever department, and they're basically like a nursing assistant.
Mhm.
I did that in the ER, and when I tell you I loved it. It was like I was doing so much. I was doing CPR. I was helping putting in catheters in. I was helping doing. I felt like I was a true nurse, and the unpredictableness that was my that was me. I love that. Mind you, this is when I was younger. Now I'm older. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. But when I was younger, oh, someone coming in and EMS is doing CPR, give me that. That was my joy. Oh, there's someone who needs this medication and there's like they're having a gastrointestinal. Give me that. I love the unpredictable stuff. The drunk patients, the mental. Give me all of that. I loved all of that. So then I applied and then I got in working in Emerge, and I was in Emerge for like a good 10 years. And then the pandemic hit, and that changed the whole perspective. And I just said, yeah, I'm kind of done with this now. But yeah, that kind of drove me. But emergent critical care, and that's where you'll find a lot of guys who are in nursing. You'll usually find them either in emerge, um, ICU, or psych. Those tends to be our main areas that you'll find a lot of guys in nursing. You'll find guys in other areas as well too, but we just tend to navigate to that area because we love the action, we love the complexity. Like it's yeah.
Well, you know, it sounds like critical care is definitely a place for you because it seems like you are a quick thinker. Because those situations would require you to be able to think, move, and make things happen.
Yeah,
Is that a natural thing for you?
it is. I like to call myself ADHD slash OCD, and the reason why I say that is because when I'm in a merge, it's like I'm like squirrel, where, like I'll just go to it. Now in the ICU, there's an OCD thing where you like your lines labeled, the patient needs to look good, the bed needs to be made. So I can switch between the two. And I just love, yeah, it a lot of it too is it's a lot about critical care thinking, right? It's a lot about your job as a nurse. And again, this goes to impact because again, as a black man, you kind of sometimes have to prove yourself this. You have to sometimes, not sometimes, you always have to think 10 steps ahead. So if you see your patient has this condition, you need to predict, okay, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? Then I need to do this. But if this happens, this is going to happen. So therefore, I need to do this. So it's like you have a whole backup plan. And as a nurse, you already know, okay, this is going to happen. I'm predicting this might happen. So let me just put this in check so this doesn't happen. So, and that takes skill. That take like it's nothing. It's something you're not going to learn overnight. It takes skill and it takes nursing like to learn that over the years.
Wow. So look, without you know, don't tell us your sensitive or security information here, but have you ever had a situation to where you have been involved with, you know, a case that you had to really get deep into to help to save a life? If so, how was that and how did that make you feel?
Okay, so I have multiple stories. I'm gonna say this particular one, um, just because it did happen in the summertime. And usually when I tell this story, it tells people, wow, as a nurse, kudos to you. So this was almost 10 years ago. It was a hot summer. Surprisingly enough, it was in July. And I was working a night shift, and this was the emerge, and there was a major car accident that had happened. There was a family, I think of like four or five, I forget. They were turning somewhere, and I believe it was an intoxicated driver hit their car. The parents got sent to one hospital. One of the kids got sent to the other hospital, but two of the younger kids, I don't think they were wearing seatbelts, and they got ejected out of the car. So they landed. So they were there, and as a last ditch effort, because we kind of the paramedics kind of already knew things weren't the greatest. They were sent to our hospital. So I was in one of the rooms. I was in one of the recess rooms that had the older child, and then right beside it, there was another room that had a younger child. So we're literally running, and now it's their codes, right? So there's code blue, which means for an adult, their heart stops, but there's a code pink, and that's for kids. Okay, so we are running two code pinks at the same time. And there's myself, the emerge doctor, the RT, the pediatrician, the peds nurses, and I forget who else in one room, and then the same amount, like another nurse and so forth, whatever in the other room. Like it's a whole team. Both kids didn't make it. And what was very heart-wrenching was police was there, the paramedics there, they were crying. What kind of got to me was the father who was at another he was another hospital. He, I guess, found out that one of his kids was at this hospital. So he signed himself AMA, left the hospital, came to our hospital, rushed in, and his younger child had passed away, and he basically crawled into the stretcher and was hugging his dead child.
Oh my God.
When I tell you, first of all, it was quiet. You can hear a pin drip. And the emotional breakdown that happened. There were nurses who I had looked up to who had been nursing for 20 years plus, who were like grr, like strong like bull, like they were crying. The charge nurses were crying. The police officers were crying. The paramedics were crying. It got to the point where we had to get a social worker. We had a therapy dog. But the saddest part was right after all that happened, we had to turn around and take care of the rest of our patients. So there was no debrief. I mean, there was a debrief, but and this is the thing with nursing. You deal with a horrific case, and then you literally just have to be like, all right, we deal with that. Let's go back on to Mr. Smith, who has chest pain, or Mr. Johnson, who's got such and such, or this young, like, and as a nurse, the problem is that a lot of us have these built up PTSDs, and then all of a sudden it just explodes, which I think is why the pandemic was pretty much open Pandora's box. It was like you had nurses who were seeing death on a daily basis. During the pandemic, I was working in emerge and ICU at the same time. So I was seeing it at both ends. I was seeing patients coming in who were about to die, and then I would go to my part-time job in the ICU where I'd see patients literally on their deathbed. So emotionally, it's taxing. It is.
Oh, that's a whole lot. I got a nice comment here for you here. I'll put it on the screen. This young lady says it's so refreshing and gives you such a sense of relief when you see a person of color in healthcare. Your health condition is automatically believed and not doubted because of your skin color.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you heard that a lot?
Yeah. Yeah. You again, you're always having to prove yourself. And I mean, even though up here in Toronto we're very multicultural, it's still the same, right? It's still the same, right? Because you'll have other cultures who may not trust you, right? So you have to. So it's like, you know what I'm saying. So it's like there's internal racism within own different racial backgrounds, if that makes any sense. So no, that comment definitely holds true to that. So thank you, Lori.
And that I put this one on the screen as well. I definitely respect first responders, as my mother was one. It's difficult on that individual and family, especially after a bad day.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Peanut, for that comment. It is definitely true. And that's just one scenario. I have so many other scenarios where where you're just the amount of stuff that as a nurse goes through, it is like I sometimes think to myself, I'm like, how am I able to, like, the stuff that we're exposed to is just outstanding. Like it's just mind-boggling, right? It's just, but that's just, you have to have a passion for that. That's why I always say you need to be passionate in what you do. If you're not passionate, it's gonna show in your work. It's gonna show in your care, right? So
Well, thank you, Natalie, for the comment. I'll put it on the screen. So you've got great questions. You're keeping my husband on his toes. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. A lot of work has to go into doing that. I'll tell you that.
she's saying that because she's saying that because I guess because I'm so used to, like, I can just kind of rhyme stuff off my head. So she's just like, I finally met my match. I think that's what she's saying.
And here's a comment here for you. She's calling you. I'll put it on the screen. Calling you. You're a rock star.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's what a gadget girl. I think is who that is.
That gadget.
And I'll put this one on the screen for you as well. How do you stay focused after the first responders leave and not get emotional during these intense moments? That's a question for you.
So I will say for me, one of my therapies is the gym. Um I go to the gym and I work out, put my headset on, I listen to a bunch of 90s and 2000s R&B, hip hop, dancehall, soca, and I'm good. I'm to the world, like, don't, I zoom out. Um Church has been another big thing for me. And again, shout out to my beautiful wife, Natalie, for this. I mean, I grew up in church, but not as active as I was now. Over the last couple of years, I realized I needed a spiritual reset. So me now going to church on a regular basis has also helped me. Um, it's helped me emotionally and mentally, and it's helped me kind of leveled me out. So there's that. Also, just being out with your friends and family. Um, with our career, I will say one of the things that is advantage, like that has an advantage, is that whatever we do in the 12 hours, whatever we don't finish, a next nurse will pick up. However, if your 12 hours was crappy or was very intense and draining both mentally and physically and emotionally, it can play a toll on you, right? So that's why we have days off in between and so forth. But yeah, those are my personal stuff. I'll watch TV, I'll watch YouTube videos and stuff. I'll watch other YouTube content creators to kind of keep my mind busy. Um, but yeah, that kind of keeps me focused, and also being in a lot of like groups as well too. What I find is that if I keep myself positive and busy doing other stuff, such as being in interest groups, mentoring is a big thing for me. I love being a mentor. I love being an educator, because then you're taking the positive and you're trying to show that for someone who wants to do your career, who's interested in doing nursing. And I've never really considered myself a mentor at first until I had people coming to asking me, "Hey, I want to do nursing too. How do you get into this?" Or you're one of the very few black men I've seen in nursing. You got to tell me, how do you do this and so forth. So it switches the pendulum, and now all of a sudden, instead of being doubtful and negative, I'm like, I'm actually inspiring somebody. So yeah, let me tell them how the journey is and let me mentor.
Let me tell you, I want to ask you this question because what was so interesting when we had our chat when we booked you for the show, it was very interesting to see the road and the path that you took, because one, there was a lot that went through that pathway. And just by looking and listening to you now live on the show, because I'm more than sure that everybody is taking a lot of listening to what you've been through and what you're doing now. Tell us, do you think or do you know of a difference between the work you do there in Canada compared to any U.S. city or state that you have been in, or has that taken place?
Um, so generally, I would say I'm gonna say yes and no, and I'm gonna explain to you why yes and no. Yes, in the sense that generally we do, it's the same issues, it's the same um pathway, so forth and whatnot. But I will say, because I do follow a lot of American nursing, content creators and nurses. I've got a lot of fellow nurses in the States who I've linked with Instagram and so forth. Your experience down there is different in the sense that, um, for one, the racism down there is just blatant up in your face.
Mhm.
Like it's blatant. The amount of stories where I've been told or I've read on threads and so forth of how nurses, particularly nurses of color, have dealt with discrimination, have dealt with patient like violence and just all these type of situations is a bit different from up here. It does occur up here, but the racism and the discrimination is not as in your face as it is in the States. So when I hear these stories in the States, I understand why nurses have to be a certain way, act a certain way, have to be on their P's and Q's. But at the same time, I can relate to that because I've had similar situations, but not to the extent of how they've had it in the States. Um,
Mhm.
and then also too, as far as now, the one thing I will say, which I kind of wished we had this up here, is we do have nurse practitioners up here in Canada, but it's not as plenty as in the States. I've said
Mhm.
this to a lot of my colleagues and even my family and my friends. If I was in the States, I would have been a nurse practitioner or a nurse anesthetist a long time ago, just for the simple fact of the way how the healthcare in the United States is set up. It's
Mhm.
way more plentiful. It's way more convenient up here because we have a universal healthcare. It's a little bit different. So yes, we have nurse practitioners, but they're not as plentiful as they are in the States. And I
Mhm.
find in the States there's way more opportunities than there are up here as far as a nurse practitioner and so forth.
So, why is what the work you do so important to you and the community? What do you look to get from that?
To educate, to advocate, to mentor, um, to show again there are folks like us who are in the nursing field, who are in the healthcare field. Also to and again I'm gonna stress on advocate because different cultures and different upbringings respond differently to trauma and to pain, right? So this whole idea that black folks can tolerate more pain than others. No. If and especially for black women and especially for black maternity health, that is such a huge factor
Yes.
because a lot of maternity health, and especially in black women, gets missed, gets misunderstood, um, and we need to change that, right? So for me, advocating, for me, understanding, for me being a voice, but also kind of teaching colleagues and stuff and saying, hey, you know what? Maybe this may not be the case. Maybe we can look at this, right? So yeah, that's kind of helped me. But again, also just being a mentor as well, because like I said before, um, I hearing someone say, "Hey, you know what? You've inspired me," does so much to me. It actually humbles me a lot because I don't really consider myself a mentor. But then when people hear what you do, and they're like, "Wait, bro, you've got 2 degrees." Plus, you're doing your master's. Plus, you're doing this and this and this and this, and you're an educator, and you teach, and you're a family man. Like you're not the typical, 40 something gold, that does all this stuff. And I'm like, thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about your education, academia, and Humber College. Tell us about your role at Humber College and what do you teach? Who are your students? And what does a typical week in the classroom look like for you?
Okay, so I'm at that college. So I'm in the nursing and PSW program, so personal support worker program. I started off there as a clinical instructor. So I had nursing students in their third and fourth year. Um, I would do clinical with them. And I'd be maybe anywhere between like 6 to 10 or 12 students. Then after that, I was approached to teach PSWs, like lecture them. So I said, okay. So I started doing that, which was an interesting journey. And I say interesting journey because even though the material itself to me is basic, the students coming in to do this, I have to remind myself they know nothing about healthcare. So sometimes even the basic stuff you need to kind of go over. But it's been rewarding. Um, it's also been quite interesting because I'm also doing my master's at the same time. So teaching and being a student, I can kind of see it in both perspectives. I will also say, yo, the use of the chat GBT and AI is that's a thing. A lot of students are using that, and at first I was very against it, but I understand why it's used. I embrace it, but as long as you're using it um for its good intention and not just being lazy. Like if you have already done a paper on a particular topic, but you want ChatGPT to say like, "Hey, can you just kind of polish it or edit it or whatnot?" Or give me a direction, that's fine. But if you literally go into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, write me a 10-page essay on blah 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 blah," then no, that that ain't acceptable. Um, but yeah, that's my teaching journey. I love it, and that's I also realized me being a teacher. Um, I love seeing students learn from me, connecting the ideas and succeeding, and that's where that kind of feeds the whole thing of like, you know what, I do like teaching and being a mentor. So yeah.
So, in teaching and thinking about your class and your students in general and as a whole, what do you like to get from your students, and what do you like? What do you want to instill in your students when it comes to the medical profession and what they should be doing?
So particularly with my nursing students, um, I will specifically tell them and say, hey, always ask questions. Don't act like you know everything. Don't be afraid to say, I'm not familiar with this procedure. Can you please review this with me? Because what you don't want to do is act like you know what you're doing. And then when you come to do the procedure now and something goes wrong, then it becomes your fault. So that's the number one thing I always say. Number two, um, I'm going to use the abbreviation CYB. And what CYB means, cover your behind. And what I mean by that, I mean they need to chart on everything. So if you've done something, you chart it, you document it. Because if something happens and it goes back to court, or there's a situation where they need to prove yes or no, you've documented that you've done it. Um, another thing that I like to say, and this is specifically for nursing students, um, what because a lot of younger nursing students, or those going into the career, they're being, and I'm trying to be nice about this. Well, I am being nice about this, but it's just advice. A lot of There's a lot of nursing influencers. They're on TikTok, they're on IG, they're on all these social media platforms, and what they're telling these young nurses is they're telling them, "Hey, don't do bedside, don't do general medicine floor nursing. Go straight into a specialty. You can do it, etc., etc., etc. You can go straight into ICU and so forth." While I do agree with that, I also tell a lot of my nursing students, I said, hey, what I would recommend is you working 6 months to 1 year of just working as a general nurse, like on a general floor. And the reason why I say that is for two things. Number one, when you go into these specialty areas, the expectation is that you should have already had some type of general knowledge of nursing, right? And number two, what I always like to say is, how can you take care of an unstable patient if you don't even know how to take care of a stable patient? So what I always tell my nursing students is I said, hey, you want to go into ICU, CCU, whatever critical care unit emerge, that is great, but develop your general nursing skills, because when something goes wrong in those critical areas, it's expected that you should already know what to do. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is that a lot of these students now are being pushed, or by these influencers, especially travel nursing, they're being put in these circumstances and situations where they don't have enough knowledge. They get themselves into trouble, and there's no one to protect them. So I don't want them to I want them to be protected and I want them to know their stuff. There is no immediate rush. Like you don't need to rush to get into ICU and emerge. They're not going anywhere. Those units, those specialties are going to be there for a lifetime. There's no reason for you to rush into it. Just know your basic, and it will make a huge difference. And I've told that to my nursing students, and some have come back to me and still contact me, email me. And they say, you know what, Dwight, thank you so much. I did like a year's worth in working like on a general medicine floor. I'm in emerge in ICU, and I feel so much comfortable, and I feel so much I have comfort and knowing what I'm doing. Thank you. So yeah, that's kind of my little advice I like to give.
So, how does the knowledge you carry from over a decade of critical care nursing translate into what you bring to students in an academic setting? And how do you make those clinical experiences pedagogue meaningful?
So what I always do is I take real life situations and I apply it to them. So what I always tell my nursing students is, okay, this is what you're learning theoretically in the classroom, but this is what's going to happen in reality. Okay? So prime example, PSWs, okay? Um Personal support workers. Sometimes depending on their education, they're told that they can administer insulin to a patient. Now, what I always tell these PSW students is I say, okay, this is what you're theoretically being taught, and it's not necessary for my program. I'm just saying in general. But I say, listen, I'm going to give you the reality. As a critical care nurse, I need another nurse to sign off my dose.
Right.
So if I need another nurse to sign off my dose, and they're a nurse, and you're a PSW and you don't have the nursing license, should you be doing this task? You don't feel comfortable? Don't do it. Right? Um, Even certain situations where like if you come into a patient's room, right? Make sure you gather all your belongings so you're not going in and out. Just certain things that like because I always tell them your your case scenario or your simulation lab is going to be completely different from what's going to happen in reality because not everything goes perfectly well, and this is just in reality, right? So I always give them like advice. One advice I and I say this to a lot of my male nurses, my male nursing students, is I say, listen, if you are alone with a female patient and you need to do like say an EKG or a Foley catheter, don't be in the room by yourself. You get
Exactly.
another female colleague, whoever, and you be in that room with you. Because I know someone who was in a situation. I don't know them personally. It's someone who knows them. They were a nurse, and they did an EKG on a patient, and the patient falsely accused them for sexual assault.
Oh,
Never happened. The nurse ended up losing their license, and they had to go through over a decade of court to prove that they didn't do it. And basically, the patient was just like, yeah, I just made it up. Well, you just ruined this poor man's career. So, with that said, that's why I always say, yeah, always have someone with you in the room. And likewise with women, if you're in a situation, or you know what, with anybody, if you got to do a procedure and you don't feel comfortable doing it by yourself or being alone in the room, get someone there with you.
you
That
know, I always think that that's a good thing anyway, because you know when they just talking about just for people's sake, what's going to be how everything what they call it just want to be politically correct for PC
yeah,
for PC purposes anyway, because nowadays everybody has the opportunity now to sue people for anything now.
yep,
And so that is the crazy part of society today. And I kind of hate that, especially in your profession, that is one of those that's easily scapegoated.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I can listen. There. Okay, let me tell you another scenario. Okay. Um, and this is not even nurse related, but it kind of is because part of my master's that I'm trying to focus on is workplace violence against healthcare staff, and my goal is there should be some type of legislation or law where if you assault a nurse, a doctor, a housekeeper, whoever, charges need to be pressed, because I'm sure you can't go into McDonald's and act a fool. You'll get charged. So why is it accepted in the hospital? So prime example, there was a patient who, I'm not going to say the department, I'm going to keep it very generic. There was a patient who obviously was intoxicated, was acting very irrational, and they left their room and they went straight to the nursing station, and there was an I don't know if they were a physiotherapist or some other healthcare worker that was working there, and this patient immediately put this person in a chokehold, was trying to choke this person to death.
Oh
So
God.
everyone's trying to, like, free this person off, and there just so happened to be an orderly that was there. The orderly um tried, clear the situation, tried to protect the patient. This patient ended up punching the orderly. The orderly, as a reflex, punched the patient back because they punched them. So they punched him back. The orderly got suspended. The
That's
orderly got
crazy.
suspended. And then the patient got, all this stuff. And for all my healthcare workers and nurses, you've heard this time and time again. One of the questions that we always get, and it's a joke, it's a meme joke, but it's so true, is we always get asked, well, what could you have done to prevent the situation from getting worse?
No, I'm sorry, baby, but that's funny.
No, but it's true. It is so true. And a lot of, especially nurses, we're so tired of hearing that, because it's just like, this person tried to unalive me. I
Right.
defended myself. But now you're going to turn around and ask, what could you have done to prevent from the situation?
Wow.
And that's where a lot of healthcare workers get, one of the reasons why we get burnt out, and also too why we feel vulnerable, because if we protect ourselves, we get in trouble. If we don't protect ourselves, we still get in trouble. So, and I'm just seeing one of the comments. Lori made a great point. 75% of nurses will be assaulted by patients or visitors during their careers, and those stats are removed in ER and psych nurses from those statistics. Yeah, because in psych and emerge, trust and believe. I can listen. The amount of patient violence that occurs, it's ridiculous. It's to the point now where, like, again, and this is where I mentor when it comes to like emerge nursing and stuff like that. Sometimes I have to tell nursing students or nurses who are starting off, I said, listen, at the end of the day, you need to protect yourself. If you see someone acting crazy or acting like a fool, make sure you have the stuff that are in there to protect yourself. If it's medications, if it's security, whatever that you need to do. Because at the end of the day, it's your license and you need to protect yourself. But yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And some of these patients and visitors, they will test you. I'm not saying all, okay? I just want to make a record for that. I'm not blaming all patients and visitors. I don't want someone saying, "Oh, he said." There's a percentage. There's a small percentage. And yes, part of it could be due to the healthcare workers who could be acting a certain way. I would never deny that. But I'm just talking those particular situations. It's yeah.
So let's fast forward here and come up to the work that you do as community leadership and what you've established with BNLC.
Okay.
Um, Tell us about Black Nurses Leading Change and what that organization is, what it does, and why it exists.
Okay, so Black Nurses Leading Change is an interest group formed by there's a group in Ontario, with a province Ontario here. It's called the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. So pretty much the purpose of Black Nurses Leading Change, it came up, or it started out right in the pandemic, and it was created because we noticed that as Black nurses and Black healthcare workers, that we needed a voice. We needed to show that there was particular issues that do impact us, and we needed representation. So this is pretty much how the group started. Myself, I'm the communications executive network officer in that group. So my job is pretty much, I help with newsletters, we organize events and so forth. Myself, I've done a lot. I've been in the group for I think 4 years. I can't even count, but we are like a happy family. Shout out to Lori, who's in the chat. She's actually the chair. There's also Donna, who's our political she's our political E&O. Actually, no, Donna's actually our social media. We're looking for a political E&O right now. We've got Daria, who's our financial. We've got um, Kiwana, who is our membership. We've got James, who's our student. We had Nicole, who was our social media, but she's our member of large. We have Danya, who was our she's our vice president. She used to be the president. I feel like there's more people. There shouldn't be more, but if I forgot, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that group has made so much changes. We've done a lot. Myself, I actually started a web series called Black Men in Nursing. So I started that, and it's like we do the podcast like every couple of months, and it's myself and a couple of Black nurses who I know. Shout out to Akeem, Jordan, Jason, and myself. We are all Black nurses, and we talk about different topics. So we talk about education, we talk about discrimination, we talk about mental health, because these are all factors that impact us. And it's been great because as Black men in nursing, a lot of people don't realize, oh shoot, we never realized that was an issue for you. Prime example, when there's an aggressive patient. I can tell you right now, if I'm on the floor, everyone's looking at me like I'm Hulk Hogan or I'm like The Rock. All right, D, deal with this. I'm sorry, I'm not security. Why are y'all looking at me? Or the question or can you help lift this 300-pound patient? Okay, I can do that, but can I ask you a question? If I wasn't here, who would help you? Crickets. Right? So that's so those are stuff that we talk about. But yeah, with Black Nurse Leading Change, we've done really well. We partners with different groups. We mentoring young students. But we're doing a lot. Like it's a group that I love a lot, and we've created so much connections.
Mm. So, as communications engagement and networking officer for BNLC, what does your role actually entail day to day, and what are you most focused on building within the organization right now?
So mainly for me as a communication E&O, that's just a short term. So there's newsletters that come out. I'm also responsible. I mean, there is a social media, but myself, the social media network officer and the membership network officer, as well as the chair, we collaborate on, okay, if this project is coming out, how are we advertising it? Who are we getting in touch with? So myself, I'm involved with, as I said, newsletters, getting in touch with possible speakers, also getting in touch with other Black organization groups that are with nursing and just saying, hey, we're collaborating on this, can you help us with this? So there's that. Those are just some of the stuff that we're involved with, and just helping, just getting our voice out there, right? And I think also too, again, it's great that as a guy too, again, I guess I'm showing representation, because there's like, oh, there's Black men who are nursing, great, now I can kind of relate and I can ask questions and so forth. So yeah, as my job as a communication, it's pretty much getting the word out there. And I also do help other background stuff too, like I help set up meetings and so forth, and kind of just helping, supporting everyone, like the president and vice and so forth.
So, what is the state of Black nursing leadership in Canada today, and where are the strengths and where are the gaps that organizations like BNLC are working to fill?
So, first of all, excellent question. I love that question. Where I'm gonna kind of work backwards. Where we are now, we are definitely a voice. We are a group that a lot of people organize. A lot of people of different organizations are recognizing us. We are also collaborating with other groups as well. There's the Ontario Black Nursing Network. There's the Canadian Black Nursing Association. There's a PanCan Nursing Association. These were different Black nursing associations throughout Canada, where we were doing our thing, but it was very separated, and we didn't know that we existed until we kind of all started to network. One of the key things, or one of the key aspects, I think that helped the networking was, we do have a Canadian Nursing Association, and our vice president, and I'm going to shout her out. Her name was, well, she was a vice president. Her name was Bukola Salami. She was like the first Black vice president nurse to be there, and because other organizations knew her, it kind of all of a sudden kind of blended us together. And we're like, okay, this is happening. Oh, this is happening. So now all of a sudden now we're supporting each other and we're making a voice. Years ago, especially during the pandemic, we were far in between. In fact, if you as a Black nurse or a nurse of color raised an issue or wanted to say something, it was, you're creating too much ruckus. Yeah, we'll get to you later on. I think you're being a little bit oversensitive. You really want to talk about this? So as Black nurses, we were tired of hearing that. So that's why all these groups started forming. And now what's wonderful about these groups is now we're mentoring. So prime example, last week I was just at a university where myself and a couple of other Black nurses, we were mentors for these black nursing students, and also high school students, particularly Black high school students who were interested in nursing. So hearing it from us, and we had a very diverse group. I think there was 5 of us. 2 of us were guys, 3 were women, and we're all from different aspects. Some were in the beginning of the career, some were working in peds, some were in the academia area. Myself, I'm ER ICU. So we represented a whole like a whole genre, like a whole spectrum. And that to me was very blessing, because it was like we are connected. And because of that, now we're doing more stuff together. So now it's, we're making changes. We're in spaces now, so it's really good.
So let's talk about the Black Men in Nursing webinar series.
Mhm.
What is it? How did it come to exist? And what need was it in design to meet?
So Black Men in Nursing, I came up with the idea. What ended up happening was, so in the Black Nurses Leading Change group, we were talking about different webinars, because what we do is that we do host a number of webinars throughout the year. And one of the things that I've always said to myself was, there's not enough representation of Black men in nursing. And if there are representation, it's always looked in a bad way. There's always stereotypes. We're womanizers. We're this. We're that. We're blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? I want to change that narrative. Um, we do exist. So what ended up happening was I ended up linking up, and again, shout out to Akeem, Jason, and Jordan, because they're normally on my podcast, or webinar. I reached out to them, knew them through LinkedIn, knew them from different associations and meetings. I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start this webinar. Are you interested? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then also when I presented it to Black Nurses Leading Change, they loved the idea. They absolutely loved the idea, to the point where it actually kind of birthed into a documentary, which is almost done. It's Black Men in Nursing. Shout out to Lori, because she's working on that. So that kind of went into that documentary. So from that, I said, you know what? Let me do the webinar, see how it goes. And we did the first webinar, and it was a success. We had a lot of people who liked it, and then I said, all right, so maybe we should continue this. And a lot of people have said, you should do this webinar on a regular basis. I would like to. Time wise, right now, the way how my life is right now, I kind of have a lot going right now, so I would like to, but not on such a frequent basis. And also, too, the guys who I do the podcast, they're also busy as well too. Like, one of them is doing their PhD, one of them just graduated doing their masters. We all have family lives, so forth. So it's just trying to find that perfect time that we can do it. But yeah, I've been doing it, and I love it. I love showing the world that we do exist. We know what we're doing. We're intelligent, and we can do just as great care as anyone else.
You know, I'm going to suggest this to you guys. I think that if you had more people that were able to actually fill in at that time, to continue that good work, because I think as you guys continue to add to that, if you've got long gaps in between, then it kind of like it throws you off a little bit.
Yeah, it does, but also,
You
I
know,
mean,
you know,
I'm gonna say this: I'm a very busy man, busy in a good way, but I also know that takes time and commitment, and
it
I know
does.
at the present time I'm not like I've got. I mean, I'm still trying to finish my third book that I'm trying to write. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different things that I'm doing, so that's why I kind of space it out. I think once, especially when my master's is finished and things kind of settle down, that I'll probably will try to do it on a regular basis. But no, I do appreciate that advice, and I know that it requires a commitment.
So, what has the response been from Black male nurses who have participated in or tuned into the webinar series? What are they telling you about what it means to them to have that space?
Sorry, repeat that again. You cut that out. Sorry.
What has the response been from Black male nurses who have participated in or tuned into the webinar series? What are they telling you about what it means to them to have that space?
Um, I've been told that one of my first messages I got was "Thank you, bruh." Literally, I thank you, bruh. That was a message from someone. They said, "Thank you for being a voice. Thank you for showing that we can do this." I had a couple of nursing students um who literally said, "You're an inspiration," because literally we don't see this when we're in nursing, and the fact that there's four of you guys and you guys are in all different aspects and you're thriving in your career, thank you, because now I can prove to myself that I can do just as well as you guys and even excel to any higher grounds that I want to. So I've been met with a lot of positive affirmations, which was humbling. I even remember one time we did a podcast, like we did one of the webinars, and there was actually someone, I think he was from Tennessee, I forget. He called in and he was like, "Kudos to you guys for doing this because it's great that there's a webinar series and so forth." And it's funny because I laughed and I said, "But you guys in the States have, I find in the States there are a lot of support systems for Black men in nursing, not so much in Canada." But he said, "Yeah, but it's not like, it's not as intense. You guys don't talk about the topics like you do. It's just kind of like, hey, we're Black men, we're nursing, and let's just post a bunch of memes and so forth." I said, "Oh, well." We don't do that. So but yeah, it's been inspiring. And like I said, like, if I can help change someone's either mind to do nursing or help them navigate through any struggles that they had through that I can go through and help them overcome that, then I've done my job.
Leslie, let's get into the this Black History moment because we discussed this prior to the show. I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and career. You told me it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Marcus Garvey in your life, and Dr. J. Douglas Salmon and Mary C. Cole in your career. When we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, can you tell us, Dr. King spoke of the fierce urgency of now, the moral imperative to act in the present moment for justice, not someday. How does that philosophy show up in the daily choices you make as a nurse, an educator, and a community leader?
Okay, just repeat that. I have a thought in my head. Just repeat that question one more time, just to make sure I'm answering that correctly, because these are really good questions.
How does that philosophy show up in the daily choices you make as a nurse, an educator, and a community leader?
If I can summarize that in one word, it's gonna be more than one word, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Making changes, just showing that it can be done, showing that you know what you've gone through, your struggles that you've gone through can be someone else's life lessons. So they can look at what you've gone through and be like, okay, this is what this individual's gone through. I'm going to take that knowledge and and apply that to what I want to do. Um, being just be just knowing who you are and just understanding that you're always going to have doubters. You're always going to have people who will tell you no. Um, and just overcoming that. So just being a change, just being a huge change, and just going for what you want to go for.
So when you think about the now, because when you actually went and helped these guys, or you created this the BNLC, I mean that in itself seemed like it was like for the urgency of the now. And so when you just think about that, what was the whole purpose of that compared to this question? Because it seems like you have the ability to actually build community, to bring people together, to do these wonderful things. What was that about? How does that work?
Oh boy. That like well, first of all, I'm not gonna take credit for Black Nurses Leading Change. I joined after it was formed, but
Okay.
I will definitely say I hel- I was helped, with the growth. I'm not gonna take all the credit for that. Um I just yeah, I find these, you know what, it's very humbling for me because you're forcing me to actually answer questions and I'm supposed to gloat about myself. I don't like doing this. So I love these questions because it's like now I have to be egotistical and I'm usually not that type of an egotistical person, but now you're kind of forcing that out of me. I gotta strut myself now. So um yeah, I would how can I say this without being conceited? But
Well, see, it's not conceiting. It's not
yeah.
about being egotistical. It's about verbalizing the things that you've contributed to and how you've helped to build. And so, in that, that's what the community needs to see from individuals like yourself, because
Yeah.
that's the inspiration, that's the motivation. So, it shouldn't be hard to talk about your feats and your accomplishments.
No, it's just you know what? I think part part of I think for me, one of my struggles, and I'm gonna talk about my accomplishments. Part of my struggle is that I'm so not used to talking about myself and
Right.
talking about what I want to do because I'm so busy taking care of other people's needs, doing other stuff. So for me to actually reflect on what I've done and what I made a change, I have to sit back and be like, wait a minute, I've done, but where do I start? But and how do I don't sound how like not sounding egotistical? But with that said, what I've done, obviously teaching, mentoring, um, I've, you know, I'm the interest groups, being a face, doing a webinar, being involved in like different different organizations, events. Perfect example too, even on Christmas last year on Christmas, BNLC and another organization that I'm with on Christmas morning, we helped out with Christmas breakfast. Just being a role model and just helping people. I love doing that. That's just always been my thing. I like to when you're happy, I'm happy. Um Writing a book. I don't know if I mentioned this. I have one book that I've written and there's another book that's supposed to come out and I'm working another one, but me, I like to do a lot of stuff. It's just they're like, getting an education. I have like, my 2 degrees. I'm working on my master's. Um might do PhD. Don't know yet. Been told in the ether that I should do it. Don't know. Um, just be and then being in just in like leadership positions, being a charge nurse in the emerge, especially during the pandemic, that was crazy. Being a clinical lead, educating, so forth. So, I think all of those qualities that I have done, um, and again, being with Black Nurses Leading Change, being with other associations as well too,
Mhm.
Those definitely help, as far as me helping the community, as far as what we can do and making a change. And
Well,
I'm always thinking there's more to do.
mhm.
But when I realize, yeah, I'm always thinking there's more to do. I don't know why. I feel like that my work's not done yet. My job is not done yet. I still think that I need to do more. And I'm not saying it in a way of burning myself out, but I need to start planting seeds to be like, oh, a black man in nursing can do this. Okay. Like, for example, and I'm gonna put this in the ether, and if this happens, may God be the glory. At one point I thought, you know what? I don't think there's ever been a black man in nursing who's been like the president of one of the major nursing associations. Hey, maybe I can do that and see what happens. Make a change. Like I think that's what it is for me. Like I'm always like, what can I do to leave a mark and to inspire others? And that's yeah, that's it for me.
Well, Dr. King also understood that health equity was inseparable from civil rights. He called healthcare disparities a form of injustice. How do you carry that framework into your advocacy work today?
So, how does just repeat that one more time? Healthcare, how does
Dr. King also understood that health equity was inseparable from civil rights. He called healthcare disparities a form of injustice. How do you carry that framework into your advocacy work today?
so basically for me, and I mentioned this before earlier on, um, you do need to understand, and this is not even just for black individuals, this is for any culture, period. You need to understand that A, everyone has a different upbringing, and B, their wellness, their healthcare stuff that they do is a bit different. So you need to recognize that and also advocate for that, right? So, and also, not everyone is going to show the same symptoms, or not everyone has a voice to say that they have a problem. Prime example again, I'm going to use sickle cell because sickle cell seems to be the main example because it's true. Sickle cell people, or the individuals who have sickle cell, they go into crisis. They're in a lot of pain. Again, there's that discriminatory factor of, well, A, they don't need pain medications, they're overreacting, and oh, they're strong enough, they can deal with it. Well, no. So this is where individuals like myself need to come in, educate, advocate, and say, hey, this person has a particular illness. Your perception of what you think they're going through is not correct. This is what they're going through, and I can tell you that because I can relate to what they're going through. So therefore, I think, and I would advocate that we should do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever treatment. Um, and this goes for anyone else too. Like, I mean, any other culture or whatever the case may be. But definitely with health equity and your background, it does play a huge factor because, and again, I've seen this where people get denied of healthcare, people get denied of treatment based simply on the color of their skin, and that shouldn't be the case. So yeah, definitely I want to make sure that we advocate that, and I do that in my practice.
Well, there's well, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna actually get to the point now. We're gonna close, and I need you to give our audience some words of wisdom and encouragement, how to connect with you via social media, your website, your books, how to get your books, all of those good things.
Okay. So you can follow me on my social media aspect. So on IG, I'm Medsoul Brother. So MEDSOUL Brother. So it's Medsoul Brother on IG and also X, aka Twitter. I also on TikTok, where I am Nurse Soul Brother, so Nurse NURSE Soul Brother. And I actually have my own YouTube channel. I haven't been active on it for a bit, but I'm starting to now post content, and that's also Nurse Soul Brother. Um, my books, um, I have one book that's published right now. It's called Double Deception. The author, my author's name is Ford D. Barrett. So Ford, so Ford and D initial and Barrett, Barrett. That's my one book. I'm working on two others. Actually, one's supposed to be published. Don't know when it's done. I have to get that published. And then I'm working on another two. One of them is an autobiography that I'm doing as myself, nursing my whole career. And another one's another suspense novel because I like to write suspense fictions. And then for those who are in LinkedIn, just type my name. You see my name there, Dwight Barrett. Definitely add me on. That's where I do a lot of my networking. And by all means, for sure. I mean, I like to give advice. I like to mentor. I like to make a change, and I just want to just make a difference.
Well, I want to thank you for being here. There's a whole lot of stuff that we didn't actually get the opportunity to cover, and I'd love to have you back
Sure.
because this was very enlightening. And I've got to say, there's a lot that I learned, especially thinking about the system here in America and how you actually function and operate there in Canada. You're right. There are a lot of similarities, but there are some differences. But I'm sure they can't be that far off, other than what the systems are about universally, or if it's just about one particular system. But still, in all, there's a lot of commonalities. I appreciate that. And so, as I close the show, I'm going to close the show with this monologue. But before I close, I want to ask if you could stick around for a few minutes after I close the show. And I want to say this to the audience before I close. And that is for those of you that are watching on all of our channels, especially our YouTube channels. If you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I ask if you would please support us by subscribing to the YouTube channels, enabling all notifications, where every time we have a live show, you will be able to get the show live, as well as you're able to go back and watch all of our previous recorded content with all of our great guests. That's got plenty of inspiration and motivation for you to use for yourself or for your community. So in closing, tonight we have been in the presence of someone who reminds us what it looks like to live with purpose. We have heard from a man who walks into the most critical moments of human life, not to observe, but to serve, who stands in the classroom not to lecture, but to build, who sits at the desk not to escape, but to tell the truth, who shows up for community not when it is convenient, but because he understands that his gifts were never just for him. Dwight Barrett, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. But more than that, thank you for your life's work, for every patient you have cared for in those ICU beds when the world felt impossible, for every student who has sat in front of you and seen, maybe for the first time, that someone who looks like them can lead in medicine, for every Black male nurse who turned on a webinar screen and finally felt seen, for every reader who will open Double Deception and find something of themselves inside those pages. For our audience tonight, at home, online, wherever you're watching this, let us be clear about something. Supporting Black health is not a political act. It is a human one. Read Black authors, support Black-led organizations like Black Nurses Leading Change, advocate for equity in the hospitals and schools and policy rooms, and determine who lives and who dies in this country. You can learn more about Dwight Barrett and his work, including Double Deception and the Black Men in Nursing webinar series, through Black Nurses Leading Change. Find BNLC online and follow Dwight across all social platforms. Here on American Black and White, we do not believe in pretty lies or uncomfortable silence. We believe in truth, the full, complicated, luminous, sometimes painful truth of what it means to be Black in America and across that diaspora. And we believe that truth spoken with courage and received with open hearts is the beginning of every transformation that has ever mattered. For American Black and White, I'm Charles Zachary King. Keep the conversation going, stay in the work, and remember, the story is not over. We're still writing it. And join us tomorrow night as we will have the state of Black America. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow evening.